It was never supposed to be more than a quick business trip. Just 2 nights in a budget hotel near the edge of a sleepy mountain town, the kind that shuts down by 9 p.m. Jacob Miller had driven for hours, the sun long gone behind thick clouds, leaving behind a slate-colored sky and mist that wrapped around his car like cold fingers. By the time he pulled into the gravel parking lot of the Brier Hills Motel, his eyes were bloodshot and his patience thin. Inside the dimly lit lobby, a tired woman with a hollow voice handed him a key with a tarnished brass tag. Room number 313. The moment the key touched his palm, a shiver ran up his spine. He told himself it was just the chill of the night. Jacob didn't notice the woman's fleeting glance at the key before she turned away. Nor did he hear the faint whisper echo from the hallway behind the front desk, like a breath brushing past a door that should have remained shut. The hallway that led to room 313 was long, with outdated carpeting and flickering lights that buzzed overhead like trapped insects. Most rooms were dark, and the few that were lit seemed wrong. Behind one door, he thought he heard the soft sound of weeping. Behind another, a laugh, high and childish but somehow broken. Still, he pressed on until he stood before it. Room 313. The number plate hung crooked, its digits faded. He slid the key in and pushed the door open. A wave of musty air hit him, thick with dust and something deeper, something rotten beneath the surface. The room was small but tidy. A single bed with stiff sheets, a wooden desk with a cracked mirror, and a window that looked out onto nothing but woods. He closed the door behind him and tossed his bag onto the bed. The moment the latch clicked, the room seemed to exhale, like it had been holding its breath. Jacob brushed his teeth, splashed water on his face, and avoided looking in the mirror for too long. Something about the way it caught the light felt wrong, like it reflected more than just the room. Like it held something else, something waiting. He chalked it up to exhaustion and turned off the lights. It wasn't long before the dreams began. The first night, he dreamed of the hallway, only this time it stretched endlessly. The walls were soaked, bleeding red into the carpet. He walked barefoot, his feet leaving no sound. The doors on either side pulsed like they were alive. And behind every door, he heard whispers, whispers that grew louder the closer he came to room 313. He stood before it. The number on the door was carved into the wood now, as if by nails. As he reached out to open it, he woke up. His heart thundered in his chest. The digital clock read 3:13 a.m. Course it did. The second night was worse. He returned to the motel late after his meetings, too tired to eat. The moment he crossed the threshold into room 313, he felt it, an oppressive weight that settled on his chest like a boulder. He ignored it, too rational to give in to superstition. But as he lay in bed, the silence became unbearable. No distant cars, no wind outside the window. Just silence, heavy and absolute. Until the scratching began. First it was faint like a mouse behind the wall. But then it grew louder. Rhythmic. Fritch. Scritch. Scritch. He sat up, heart hammering. "Hello," he called out, but his voice felt swallowed by the room. The scratching stopped. He held his breath. Then, from the foot of the bed, a voice whispered, "Don't open the door." Jacob jumped up and flipped on the light, but the room was empty. The mirror, however, had changed. Written in the condensation that hadn't been there a moment ago were 3 numbers. 313. His reflection stared back at him, eyes wide with confusion and something else. His mouth wasn't moving, but the reflection's lips twitched into a grin. He stumbled back, knocking over the chair, and ran out into the hallway. But the hallway was no longer the same. The lights had died. The floor beneath him felt wet. And as he turned to find the lobby, every step echoed too loudly, like he was walking through a void. Every door now bore the same number, 313. And from each he could hear breathing. He reached the lobby, panting, trembling. The night clerk looked up from her book, unconcerned. "There a problem, Mr. Miller?" I need a different room," he stammered. She blinked. "There are no other rooms. But the one I'm in." Something's wrong with it. Mirror. The voices. She stared at him a moment, then sighed, as if she had seen this before. I'll move you to room 212. He didn't ask questions. He took the key and left as quickly as he could. Room 212 was cold but ordinary. No strange mirrors. No whispers. Jacob passed out from exhaustion. But when he awoke in the morning, the key on his nightstand no longer said 212. It read 313. And outside his window, which last night had shown the parking lot, now revealed nothing but a thick forest, the trees swaying though there was no wind. He stumbled to the door and yanked it open. The hallway outside was not the one he came through. It was the hallway from his dreams. Long, red-soaked carpet, pulsing walls, and silence thick enough to drown in. Room 313 had followed him. Jacob was no longer staying in a room. The room was staying with him. Desperate, he ran, room key clenched in his hand like a talisman. Door after door, hallway after hallway, he found no exit. The hotel had become a maze, looping endlessly. And always, no matter which corner he turned, there it was. Room 313. At last something in him broke. He pushed the door open, stepping inside. The room was different now. The bed was gone. The walls were covered in handprints, smeared in something dark. The air was cold, and the mirror was no longer cracked. It was shattered, yet somehow whole, reflecting images that didn't match reality. In the reflection he saw himself, but not himself. A version of him, hunched and grinning, eyes black, whispering something he couldn't hear. He tried to turn away, but his reflection reached out, and this time Jacob felt it. A cold hand on his shoulder. He screamed. The room swallowed the sound. Darkness closed in. And then silence. The next morning, the motel lobby was calm. A couple checked in, laughing softly. The clerk handed them a brass key. Room number 313, she said, smiling politely. Neither noticed the way her hand trembled. And upstairs, behind the closed door of room 313, the mirror shimmered. Inside it, a man stood smiling. He looked just like Jacob Miller. But he didn't blink. And he didn't move. The moment Jacob's scream died, the room went black, blacker than a starless night. His lungs burned, his vision tunneled, and somewhere deep inside him a bell tolled. He wasn't certain how much time slipped by, but when the darkness finally receded, he found himself standing before the broken mirror, shards at his feet reflecting candle-bright flecks of light. The air smelled of damp earth and old smoke. He knelt to peer into the largest shard. At first, he saw only the jagged edge of the glass, but then the surface rippled like water. Through it, he glimpsed someone else's room, one with peeling wallpaper, a battered suitcase on the bed, and a solitary figure huddled in the corner. Jacob blinked. The hotel corridors had shifted again, and now he stood before a long set of stairs descending into shadow. Compelled, he followed them, each step echoing like a heartbeat. At the bottom, a single door waited. Number 313. He pressed his palm to the wood. Cold ran through his veins, the same cold that must have killed whoever once owned this room. A whisper drifted through the keyhole. "Join us." The door swung open on its own. Inside was a gallery of mirrors, each facing another, endless reflections stretching away in every direction. And standing among them were pale figures, their faces pressed against the glass, mouths open in silent screams. They reached out with long, spidery fingers, but whenever Jacob moved closer, they dissolved into fog. He turned to leave but found a fresh wound on his palm, the imprint of a brass key, the one he'd used to enter every room. It burned like acid. In that moment, a single word formed in his mind. Remember. Memory flooded back, late check-ins, the clerk's hollow eyes, the soft weeping and broken laughter behind closed doors. He recalled the legend he'd dismissed online. A century-old innkeeper who'd sacrificed guests to feed the hotel's insatiable hunger for life. Now Jacob realized the truth. The motel wasn't just haunted. It was alive. A chill skated down his spine as the mirrors began to hum. In every reflection, the motel waited, waiting to trap him, to consume him, to press him into its endless halls. He heard the shifting of floorboards, the scrape of chairs, the low, hungry murmur of walls craving another soul. He dropped to his knees, covering his ears. "I remember," he whispered to himself. The moment the thought solidified, the key burned hotter. A voice, his own yet distant, echoed, "Find the exit." He stumbled from the mirror room into a narrow corridor lined with doors of every style, portals to other eras. Brass-knobbed Victorian doors, sleek glass panels, heavy oak gates. Each bore a number, 101, 212, 504. All except one. At the far end, a small wooden door without a number. He approached it, heart thrumming against his ribs. On the doorframe, carved in ragged letters, "Exit." Jacob's breath caught. This had to be it. He turned the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Behind him, the corridor stretched farther, twisting impossibly. The doors shifted positions as he watched, the numbers bleeding and reforming. A crash sounded behind him. He whirled to see one of the pallid figures from the mirror room clawing its way through the wall, a shape made of shadow and dust. It froze when it saw him, mouth opening in a slit of despair. Jacob's legs jolted into motion. He darted past the exit door, down another hallway, across a landing slick with condensation. Doors slammed of their own accord. The red glow of emergency lights flashed on and off. He raced, guided by intuition. There must be a lobby, an outer door, a way back to the real world. Then he saw it. A glass door at the end of a long hall, behind which moonlight spilled. Relief surged through him like heat. He sprinted forward, hand outstretched. But as he gripped the handle, the glass pulsed, rippling like water. Through it, he saw not the parking lot, but an endless forest, black against the night sky, trees leaning as though peering in. He yanked at the door, locked solid. He pounded on it. The moonlight dimmed, then vanished altogether. Behind him, the corridor collapsed, walls bending inward. The ceiling dripped thick, oily liquid. The pale figure stumbled out of the shadows. "You cannot leave," it hissed, its voice a hollow wind in a grave. "The hotel remembers you. You belong to us." Jacob whirled. With no other choice, he charged the figure. His fist met empty air. At the last second, the apparition flickered, revealing a real woman. Her eyes wide with terror, she staggered back. And then he recognized her. The motel clerk. "My name is Anna," she gasped. "I tried to warn you. I'm sorry." "Why?" Jacob demanded. "Why are you?" "They trapped me," she whispered, voice breaking. "All of us. We serve it." Her lips curled in a fevered grin. "But I found a way out." She thrust something into his palm, a tarnished brass key, identical to his own. "Use this at the real exit," she said, voice urgent. "Room 313 holds the heart of the beast. Break the heart, and the rest will crumble." He remembered the broken mirror in room 313, the heart of the hotel. Turning, he raced back the way he came, past the glass door that refused him, past the corridors that twisted like living things, until he stood before the heavy oak of room 313 once more. Jacob's hand shook as he inserted the key. The door swung open with a groan of protest. Inside, the broken mirror rested on a pedestal of dust, shards floating around it like hungry birds. The room was silent except for his ragged breathing. He lifted his own reflection from a shard. It shimmered and whispered in his ear. "Stay, forever." Its voice was velvet and wrought. Jacob raised the shard high. "No," he said, voice steadying. With a single motion, he slammed it against the mirror center. Glass exploded outward in 1,000 glittering fragments. The room convulsed. Walls buckled, floorboards splintered. The air filled with a screaming roar like a million voices. Jacob covered his ears and shut his eyes. When he dared to open them, he was alone. The shards lay inert on the floor, and the mirror's frame sagged like wet cloth. The oppressive weight was gone. He backed out of the room, key still clutched in his fist, and found the corridors returned to normal. Familiar carpeting, numbered doors, quiet lights. He followed them until he saw the lobby again. The desk, the chairs, the front door with its glass panes. He turned the key in the lock. The door swung open, revealing the parking lot exactly as he'd first seen it. Gravel underfoot, the old neon sign of the Brier Hills Motel flickering, the woods beyond silent. He inhaled the cold night air, free at last. He crossed the parking lot without looking back. Behind him, through the lobby window, Anna stood at the desk. She caught his eye and offered a faint, grateful smile before vanishing as the lights in the lobby blinked out. Jacob didn't stop running until he reached his car. Inside, he sat with hands gripping the steering wheel, sweat cooling in the night breeze. He glanced down at the key Anna had given him, tarnished, ordinary, but heavier now with meaning. As the engine turned over, he exhaled. He knew he'd never forget the horror of room 313. But he also knew the motel's heart lay shattered in that mirror room. Still, one question nagged at him. Why had Anna stayed behind? He shook his head and drove away. Behind him, the neon motel sign sputtered one last time, then died. Silence fell. In the rearview mirror for a heartbeat. He thought he saw the shape of a man standing under the sign. A man in a suit, face pale, grin wide. But when he blinked, there was nothing. Only the empty road stretching onward into the night. Finn. Feel free to let me know any tweaks you'd like, or if you want a shorter or longer version.